Hello, it's Toaster Party, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 picks for Modern budget decks for 2022. So Modern is probably the most popular 60-card constructed format in Magic the Gathering right now. It maintains its popularity because it has a rather large card pool and does not rotate ever. But it does have one issue with regards to getting in new players, that being the prices. The average top Modern deck right now is trending upwards towards $1,000 right now, with the most expensive deck in Modern being Money Pile, being worth about $2,000. So it's no wonder that some people would have trouble trying to get into this format when they see that kind of price tag. But that's what I'm here for today, to talk about the 5 decks that you can build on a budget, that being somewhere between $50 and $200, and be able to succeed at the local and somewhat competitive level. But without further ado, let's get into the list. Starting with number 5, Mono Green Stompy / Infect. I decided to put them both on the same spot on the list because they're doing much the same thing and they sit about the same competitive level on a budget. Infect being a deck that can kill your opponent as early as turn 2 with the right setup, and Stompy being a little bit less of a fast clock, but is still able to overpower an opponent with bigger creatures than they're used to dealing with in the Modern format. But there's a reason that this is number 5. This deck's success is very meta-dependent, and that goes for both of them. That if you're running into a meta that is highly controlling, then it's not likely that you're going to be able to pump up a Glistener Elf big enough before it gets hit with something like a March of Otherworldly Light, Lightning Bolt, or any other thing that could keep it from being able to swing in for lethal. Let's continue on to number 4, Blue-Red Giftstorm. This is one of the typical budget Modern decks that people like to mention with regards to decks that you can easily put together on a cheap budget and be able to see high-level competitive success with. It has been able to stay relevant in Modern for years. It's a very fast and capable combo deck that's capable of winning as consistently as turn 3. It has one problem though, and it's been trending down in recent history due to the fact that it's a combo deck that is incidentally hit by the same sideboard cards that are meant for other decks. Stuff like Unlicensed Hearse, which is a graveyard removal spell, which is usually meant for things like Murktide or Living End, that incidentally stops the Past in Flames part of the Storm deck, which is a very key piece. Let's continue on to number 3, and the list that inspired this to be made, Temur Glimscade. So for those who aren't initiated, Cascade is a mechanic that says whenever you cast a spell with Cascade, you flip cards from the top of your deck till you hit a spell with converted mana cost lower than the Cascade spell. How these decks normally function is that there's really only one spell in the deck that they're actually going to hit. In this deck's case, it's Glimpse of Tomorrow. Glimpse of Tomorrow says, shuffle all permanents on your field into the deck, then flip cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of cards shuffled in this way, and if they're permanents, put them onto the battlefield, everything else goes onto the bottom. So basically you're going to put a bunch of tokens into play, shuffle them into your deck, and then instead drop really massive finishers like Titan of Industry, or Primeval Titan, or Chancellor of the Forge, all of which pretty much will end the game soon after they hit the field. This deck still works on a budget, and the only real things that you lose being on a budget are a cleaner land base and having stuff like the MH2 Invocation Elementals, which are a bit better at interacting early, but you can fill those slots instead with stuff like the adventure spells from Eldraine, like Lovestruck Beast and Bonecrusher Giant, which give you a little bit of play before you get to turn 3, which will keep you alive long enough to be able to go for game. The token making core for this deck is extremely budget friendly, and the finisher slots are all very flexible. So If you don't like Titan of Industry or Primeval Titan, you can put in some other card that you really, really like. But let's move on to number 2, Teamer Rhinos. This is another Teamer Cascade deck, but instead of relying on Glimpse of Tomorrow, it relies on Crashing Footfalls as the Cascade target. When this card resolves, it makes 2 4/4 Rhinos with Trample, which while not as flashy, is still a very effective way to close out the game. It's a bit less difficult for players than Glimpse of Tomorrow, and doesn't have a chance to fizzle unlike Glimpse, hitting only lands. So that's why I put it at number 2 over Glimpse. Like Glimscade, you still can run the adventure spells in place of the MH2 Invocation Elementals, and the land base is going to be a little bit worse. But if you're still able to make the Rhinos, then you're still going to be able to go for game pretty easily. So let's move on to number 1, and the obvious pick, Burn/Prowess. I put them at the same spot because they're basically at the same power level and they're doing pretty much the same thing. Get your opponent dead with burn spells. The fact that a lot of the most expensive cards in Burn recently got reprinted, like Goblin Guide being a LGS promo that they just give out at some places, means that the only real expense is going to be in your lands. But even then, you can probably run the mono-red burn list and be able to see a lot of success. And with Prowess, sure, it's going to cost you a bit for the lands, but aside from that, the rest of the deck is really cheap. And it's not very hard to pilot at all, because with Burn, all you have to do is be able to count to 20 and just keep pointing bolts at your opponent's face. With Prowess, it's keeping track of your Prowess triggers a bit, but the concept's still much the same. Very simple, very cheap, very effective, hence why it's number 1 on this list. Well, thank you all for watching. I hope you leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you all have an excellent day.